Thank you. You guys should speak just to get that standing ovation. It's pretty impressive, not gonna lie. Before I dive in, I would like us to all just pause. Close your eyes for me and take a deep breath. Now think about what fills you with joy. What do you love about your life and work? What and who matters most to you? Now envision your life in a year. When you're sitting here at Presents next year, what does that look like? What about 10 years from now? What about 50 years from now? What does your life look like? All right, open your eyes. Come back to me. And hopefully no one falls asleep after the dinner break and beers. So, what I want to do now is talk about what happens next. You have that vision. Does anyone have a plan? Does anyone know exactly how they're going to get to that end vision? Are you checking those things off your to-do list left and right, and you're making that almost straight line right to it? Anyone? No? I was going to talk to you if you did know that, because that's probably a good secret to know in life. Because really, it looks more like this. That plan looks a lot more like a hot mess. And really, I want to tell you that's okay. We are not supposed to know how to get from there all the way to there in 5, 10, or even 50 years. Even Steve Jobs said, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And you have to trust that they will connect in your future. That makes it really tricky, doesn't it? And that's why I think we can look to design. Has anyone here heard of UX or user experience design? Yes, this is probably the most hands up I have ever seen. You are my favorite people. Usually I have to explain a lot about what that is, but regardless of your answer, you have experienced this. Presents is the perfect example. Hours and hours of planning went into making this event go off without a hitch so each and every one of you can have an unforgettable experience. And it's exactly that type of work that I've been doing for the last 15 years behind the curtain. And really, during that time, the one thing that I have never lost faith in is my design process. Now, these steps, you may have seen them before, you might have seen something similar. And really what this is, it's a human-centered and product design process. And it's a flexible framework that can be used to bring countless ideas to life. And really, what it means to me is that people and purpose are at the heart of everything I do. That's where I start before I even get to that first step. And so, really what I've learned is taking apps, brands, logos, websites, software, even this talk, going through this process, I've learned you can design just about anything using this framework. And in doing so, it typically looks a lot more like this, a hot mess. And I'm sure most of you, especially the creatives in here, know this process very well. You start off, you think you're going to save the world. You have all the energy in the world. Somewhere along in the middle, you start to question everything. You get lost in the details and the mess, and you think this is never going to work. Sometimes you get a little bit of hope. You go up and down. You might end up in tears and think this is never going to happen, but somehow, if you stick to it and you persevere, you will get to that launch. And really what I have learned throughout this framework is that you can design just about anything using it, including purposefully designing your life and your work. So I'm sure you're thinking about that vision. How do we use this framework, these 5 steps, and how do you get to that end goal? What we did is we really took that classic creative process and we created an entire world out of it. This is a bit what it looks like in my head and what I go through every process, every idea that I am faced with. And so we've basically taken this, and anyone can use it. That's really the beauty of it. You can put this to use. You are invited. All you have to do is start. What you're going to do is you're going to take your ideas, whether it's about your life, a product, a problem, whatever it is, you're going to throw it into this idea factory. It's going to get all mixed up with your hopes and your dreams, and we're going to shake it up and mix it up. And what I think will happen at the end is it will set you up for success, for those moments in the future when the dots are about to connect and the magic can happen. So now if I'm saying you can do this, let's look at how that happens. And that starts with the first phase, discover. And what you'll see here, this is a little discover monster. He's the guy that is going to take your hand, he's going to lift you up, and he's going to get you started in this process. This guy here, the guy that's floating that looks like he is made of shapes and ideas and all these different pieces of matter, that's you. That is your idea. And so during this phase, you're taking all the information, all the clues, and you're gathering them, and you're dreaming big. And the first thing you want to do is start with a beginner's mind. You want to drop all preconceptions. You want to just start and be you. Whether it's a life problem or a work problem that you're tackling, you want to drop all of those things that you should do or you should design. And you want to start with an empty bowl with that beginner's mind. And really that's going to allow you to dream big. That is the best part about this process. You get to break glass ceilings, you get to think differently, you get to think blue sky. Even if you don't think you can bring it to life, put it on paper and put that idea out there, because you never know how it might come to life in the future. The other part of this is listening. You're going to hear me talk about listening a lot. And I think that has really been a theme throughout a lot of the speakers here during the last couple days. So you're going to listen to yourself. For me, it's listening to my gut and my intuition, and I've learned more and more how I can tune into that and how I can trust that. You're also going to listen to the people you're serving. You want to know, what are they doing? What are they thinking? What are their needs? You're going to observe them. You're going to take in all of that information, because this is all about honing in on your purpose, the problem you want to solve, and the people you are serving. Those are the seeds that are really going to be planted during this phase and shape that purpose. So really, you want to remember here, just be you. You have nothing to prove. You get to start fresh. You get to pause. You get to center yourself and your purpose and your people, and you get to start thinking about it. Because when you have all those big, crazy ideas, you got to take that next step, and you have to start to narrow in. So this is where the think monster, his right and left brain activate. He flips between the two. He's able to help this idea guy. He's helping you to figure out what helps you fly. What needs to be deflated? What do you need to blow up and just let go of? And really, this is where you show up. This is the hard work. This is the piece that so many people skip over. They have an idea, they think they can make it look pretty, they think they can make it work, and they throw it out there. But this really helps center you. And it really does start with listening and observing, just like I said before. And the reason you're going to do this is because you want to find those opportunities. You're going to find breakdowns. You're going to observe your people, and you're going to see how you can reframe those things so you can create new solutions that have never been seen before. And doing all of this, you also want to balance it. You want to seek harmony and disruption. So you want to serve your purpose. You want to solve that problem. You want to help your people. But how can you do that differently? Because I think we've all heard that, today's problems cannot be solved with yesterday's thinking. So how can you break out of that mold, and how can you start to build those strong roots during this phase that are really going to set you up so you can create your own experiences, your thoughts, your words, as simple as that. those things are going to shape your future experiences. So this is your opportunity to find the extraordinary in the ordinary. And this is where you start to put those plans together and you narrow in on what those priorities are. Because this next phase, this one gets really fun. This is a create monster. This guy morphs into different shapes and he turns colors and he really is able to take on different personalities depending on what you are bringing to life. So he's the one that's going to remember to have fun and experiment. So really, this is where you get to breathe life into those ideas, those plans that you made through the thinking phase, and those ideas that you want to bring to life. You are going to take them here, and you are going to create a personality that serves the soul and the purpose of what you are creating. Gary Zukav's words, "When we align our thoughts, emotions, and actions with the highest part of ourselves, we are filled with enthusiasm, purpose, and meaning. When the personality comes to fully serve the energy of its soul, that is authentic empowerment." That is very clearly applicable to life, but what I think it can be applied to with products is this is where you are making that connection. You're making this personality tangible, and it's also you can create those connections with the people and the humans that are at the end of this process and the people you are creating for. So remember to experiment. Create movement. Movement creates momentum, and that is what is going to help get you through this process when you're going through the ebbs and the flows and you're trying something and it doesn't connect or it doesn't quite fit things right. You're going to keep trying again and again because you want to spark those connections with a personality that is uniquely yours. Next up is build. Seems very straightforward, doesn't it? Do I have any developers or contractors, builders in the room? It's not as simple as you think, right? Because you can think, you can plan, you can do everything right leading up to this, but when the rubber meets the road and you go to make this happen, things are going to go wrong. You may not be able to build it the way you thought you would. People may not use it the way you thought you would, so this is where you're going to experiment again. You're going to take action to make those ideas come to life. You're going to share it, you're going to test, you're going to iterate. And really, the whole entire time, you're creative problem solving because you've come this far in the process, so you have to keep that in mind and not deviate too much, but you still have to be able to solve the problems within this stage. And this is really where you do that. You bring it to life and you make it work. Expect the unexpected. You have to just embrace the fact that there's going to be those twists and turns. Trust that it will guide you. Every single step of this process is built to guide you. It's to help narrow in on your purpose and your people and to build these loose boundaries around what you're doing so you're meeting the requirements and the needs, but you're also bringing it to life in an unexpected way. And when you are ready to do that and you're ready to launch, this little lady monster here is going to be there to help give you the courage to push that out into the world. And after you do that, it doesn't stop. You have more work to do. You have people to support. You have relationships to nurture. You're going to continue to listen so you can hear that honest feedback and you can evolve what you're doing to help support your community and to evolve that idea that you've brought to life. And really, it's about sharing and serving with empathy, keeping those people in mind, keeping your purpose in mind, and owning the outcome. Bethany just talked about with the diversity gap about intention versus impact. This is where you might have saw on the last slide I talked about a gut check. I skipped over that, didn't mean to, but the gut check really is making sure that what you are putting out into the world, that intention is going to match that impact, and you aren't doing something that maybe those people don't need or are going to be misinterpreted. You want to make sure that what you are putting out there, you can own the outcome, good or bad. And the beauty of it is, you just continue to learn and grow and evolve and begin again. So looking at this process, it's probably a lot to take in. There's a lot that goes along with each of the phases, but I want to go through this and give you an example and a story. And before I do that, I need to introduce you to Hannah and Charlie. Unfortunately, today was their first day of school, and they were not allowed to miss it. So they should have been telling you this story themselves this morning, but they had to attend classes instead. Hannah and Charlie, they are a brother and sister team based out of here in Atlanta. And well, I would love for you guys to look them up and to learn more about Hannah's story. I do want to tell you that, very simply put, she was diagnosed with a condition that causes her to faint, somewhat unexpectedly and somewhat often. While she was dealing with this diagnosis, it wasn't easy. In a moment of darkness and struggle, she had an idea. She thought, if I could create a button that I could press without barely any effort or thought to let my family and friends know that I need help, I would feel so much better. And so Hannah and Charlie came to us, and we paused. We took that idea, we took the simple prototype that Charlie had built, and I should mention here, at the time, Hannah was 16 and Charlie was 14. So not all teenagers are doing this in their free time. But they came with us to this idea and this simple prototype, and we were blown away. Yes, it was a simple idea. Yes, we could take it through this process. And during this discovery phase, what we did was really dig into what the actual purpose could be and how could we build a more robust solution around this seemingly simple idea. So we brainstormed, we thought about it, we went into the thinking phase where we did research. We looked at what the users really needed in those situations. What did the person pressing the button need? What did the people need who were receiving that message at the end of the other line? How could we connect those and keep that one person supported throughout this process? And so we worked through all of this. We created requirements, needs. We put together a site map that laid out all of the screens necessary for the app. We built wireframes, which are blueprints that set up the creative phase. And so when we did get to that creative phase and this monster got to get his hands on this, we were able to have fun. But not too much fun, because the trick here was bringing this to life in a personality that can be friendly and comforting, but it still had to be trustworthy and safe. We couldn't have too much fun because this is a very serious situation, and we needed to meet the people where they were. And so this is where we created their logo. We picked colors and shapes and interactions and put together a flow that really brought all of those things together and built on that foundation that we created in the previous phases. Now the build phase, again, seems super simple. If you do all this planning, then you just have to build it, right? Well, not quite. Our app, even though it seems simple and it's one button that you press, when you press it, it sends a text message that goes out to 5 different people. If you can respond to that and you get that text message, there's a button you can press that says, yes, Hannah, I can help you. I'm on my way. Because on that web page that you get, it tells you where Hannah is, so you can immediately go to her. And I should mention, this works for anyone, not just Hannah. I'm just using her as the example. And so when we did this, we had to deal with an app. We had to deal with web pages. We had to deal with phone numbers and text messages and all of the complexities that go along with it. And it didn't always work when we went to build it and test it. Once we thought it was all good and we were ready to go, we submitted it to the App Store and it was rejected twice. We had to go back. We had to make changes. We had to make tweaks. And finally, it was accepted, and we were able to launch it. Launching it, really, the intention was we wanted to help at least one person. That's really all we cared about. And when we did, the response was incredible. Tens of thousands of people have downloaded the Not Okay app. Stories have come in from parents that were able to help their kids that were afraid to talk to them. There were kids that were able to say, I need help, without sitting there and typing a text message and changing their mind and not actually reaching out for help. The stories that came in truly were incredible. But what was also amazing was the transformation that Hannah and Charlie went through. They stepped up. They supported their users. They problem solved for them. They responded to support emails. They worked with us when any issues came up. And they've already built a roadmap to continue to improve the app and to build more features and to bring more support to their users. On top of that, they have embraced their stories and their vulnerability. They have stood up in front of hundreds of people to tell their story. They will tell anyone and everyone about this app just so they can help one more person. When we first met them, they barely spoke on the phone. They were so quiet and so shy. And as we took them through this process and they launched their idea out into the world, we literally watched their lives transform. And so really this process, that is very easily applied to a product, and that example seems pretty straightforward. But how does this really relate to life, and how can that bring magic into your life? Well, really, it all connects. Because as we looked at that slide where the little guy had the balloons on either sides, he was being pulled from one way to another, similar to how Hannah felt pulled when she needed help, but she was afraid to say anything. And so really, when purpose and people are at the center of everything you do and you come back to them, each and every step of this process adds up, and it's a piece of the puzzle, and it hones in on what you're doing. And instead of that line looking straight or like a hot mess, I believe that it starts to transform into this living and breathing, beautiful being around you that ebbs and flows and grows as you do and as you create and as you live your life. And really, when I look at this is when I can see the dots connect in my life. So I want to tell you a bit about my story, and BT kind of started that. In my childhood, like he said, I've been a lifelong artist and maker. For me, I very early on was drawn to that and knew that that was my natural expression of love. I just knew that it was comfortable and easy for me to create. And if I wasn't creating, I was on the soccer field. And taking all of that from my childhood, learning from it and evolving, it took me to college at Savannah College of Art and Design. It was trial and error, though. That was my third college that I went to. Thought I wanted to be an art teacher, thought I wanted to design cars. I kind of went through the gamut, had a lot of fun phone calls with my parents, and I finally ended up in the right place, where it truly brought together my passions, my strengths. I could play soccer, I could design, and that's really where I was introduced to this design process. It gave me a loose order to those crazy ideas in my head in a way that I could move forward with them. It gave me permission to embrace my creativity. And when I was there, I met Wes. Wes was a friend that was wise behind his years at 22 years old. And he was the type that embraced the mantra, dream and plan as if you'll live forever, but live as if today is your last. This was even before he embodied this, even before he was diagnosed with leukemia. I was part of his group of friends that supported him throughout his journey of treatment, and after a couple years of that, unfortunately, we had to say goodbye to him. He lost his battle. That is when I could clearly see what connected my passions, what made my heart beat, and what made my heart break. I realized that I could take this passion for making and creating things out of love, and I could help people with it. So I focused my senior project on a concept that created something to help patients with life-threatening illnesses when they felt completely alone. And what I designed for that senior project was a wearable device that could connect that patient in their room to their friends and family that they loved. It would bring in photos and pictures and messages to them. Keep in mind, this was before the iPhone. It was right when Facebook was starting, so it was a brilliant idea at the time. Not as brilliant right now, but trust me, it was at the time. And really, doing that, immersing myself in the research. I was at Emory working with doctors and nurses and really putting my passion into that is when I realized this is what I want to do. Now, leaving college, the journey was a little not as clear-cut. You would think that knowing exactly what you want to do, it would be easy to do it, right? My time after that looked a bit like Goldilocks' story. I went from city to city and job to job trying to find the right fit. I went from Savannah to Minneapolis to New York to Philly and back to Savannah, and I worked for large companies and small companies, and I just couldn't find the right fit. And during that time, one of those pivotal moments, I thought I was in the right place. I was working for a prestigious ad agency in New York. I loved where I lived in Brooklyn. And all of a sudden, I find myself sitting on the Brooklyn Promenade, looking at New York City in all its glory and energy. And I was eating a big, fat Milky Way because I was just laid off. I made it through 3 of the 4 rounds of layoffs during the recession. And I found myself thinking, I did everything I should do. How did I end up here? I have no idea where to go next. And trust me, when you're looking at New York City, that's intimidating. And so what I did after I finished that Milky Way and pulled myself up, I decided I needed to figure out what that next right step was, and I needed to begin again. And so shortly after that, I came to a fork in the road. After freelancing for a while, I had the choice to accept a position with one of the top ad agencies in the country and move out west, or I could move back to Savannah, and I could work for a smaller company. That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to do what I should do anymore. I didn't want work to drive my life. And so I chose to move back to Savannah, and as you heard, I went through a few different roller coasters with smaller agencies there, and there became another pivotal moment, and that's when I started East Taylor Creative. And that truly is when I bridged the gap between my life and my work and trying to purposefully bring them together and align them. During one of the hard years, business-wise and personally, it was full of a lot of loss and hard times. My husband and I were getting ready to come here to Plywood Presents. And I sent a message to Wes's parents. I'd kept in touch with them throughout the years. They lived here in Atlanta, and I always messaged them on his birthday. And when I reached out to him this year to let Mr. Smith know we were coming to Atlanta, he shared the news with me that Mrs. Smith had just passed away. She lost her battle with ALS. This was after she beat breast cancer twice. It was another moment where all I could think of was they did everything they should. How did they end up here? And just like that moment when I was sitting on the Brooklyn Promenade, I realized there are no guarantees. And so, shortly after that time, after hearing that news about Mrs. Smith, someone in the plywood community asked if anyone knew how to build apps. I said, yep, we do. And that's when we were introduced to Hannah and Charlie. Within the next year, like I told you during that story, we were able to help them create and launch the Not Okay app, which happens to be a button to connect people who are in need with their friends and family, their support system. The goal of which is almost identical to that concept I created my senior year of college. That was about 15 years ago, and today, many of you who know me know that I'm not likely to share my story, and it's a bit surprising that I'm up here. Never would I have imagined that I would be here, but today happens to be Wes's birthday. So even though neither of his parents are with us anymore, and they are not there to receive my messages today, I am honored to share this story with all of you. And it's a story, like I said, I never would have been able to tell. Number one, without this loving community. And number two, if I weren't able to look back and connect all of those dots and see how I was able to live purposefully even when it felt impossible. And I believe that this can help you as well. And I hope it gives you permission, and I hope it's an invitation that you can't pass up to purposefully live your life as well. Because I think that each and every one of us has the opportunity. You can create that spark to create that unbelievable magic in your life, that magic that you don't even know is going to happen yet. Because really, when people and purpose are at the heart of all we do, it doesn't matter if you impact one person or 1 million. I truly believe that together we can do better. So I hope each and every one of you move forward today purposefully and design your life that way. Thank you.